to be sincere, the old playbook for cultivating employee loyalty is losing a lot of its effectiveness. Perks like ping pong tables, yoga mats, once were considered like groundbreaking, and now they feel like the commonplace. The modern workforce craves for more than superficial benefits. They crave for genuine connection, purpose, and growth. And I have the impression that the traditional methods have become well overused. My question is can we get some inspiration from brands that stand the test of time? Think about it. Harley Davidson, one of the most recognized motorcycle brands globally, and has a devoted following. And I think they are referred as the Harley Owners Group. So they are fans, they are people. It's not about the quantity, but it's the quality of a group that can stand for something. Today, in fact, it's not a coincidence that my guest, Ken Schmid, was the former director of communication at Harley Davidson, because I want to get some inspiration. I want to see if there is something to do in order to ignite employee loyalty and advocacy, and to do it in an unconventional way. Ken, by the way, he's the author of a great book called Make Some Noise, The Unconventional Road to Dominance. It's kind of a book that puts together a metaphor of a motorcycle ride. The book offers like a 3 questions approach to achieve this. What do your customers say about you? What do you want them to say? And how can you get them to say it? And I find it quite impressive. And I think we are somewhere close to a solution for great employee advocacy. Ken, a pleasure to have you here today.
And, well, thanks for having me, Ivan. This is great.
And I have a question. Back in the days of university, I remember taking this marketing course, the introduction of marketing course, and we have to do business cases. And then they pushed me this case of Harley Davidson. And I want to know, is that like a myth? The stories that people say is about the loyalty of the customer, or is it a real reality?
Oh, it's a reality, and it's. I'm so glad that you mentioned the marketing case studies that you did, Yvonne, because I can be, for the last 30 years or so, I could be anywhere in the world, and people will come up to me and say, "Hey, I did a Harley case study in college or in graduate school, and it was for marketing, or it might have been for finance, or it might have been for manufacturing." So there's all these wonderful case studies out there, and what I love about them is, without even intending to, they really do a great job of promoting Harley Davidson in places where they don't expect to be seeing it, and people remember it, and that's a lot of them end up getting excited about motorcycles and buy Harleys because they saw those case studies, which is a very long-winded way of saying, Yvonne, that I expect you to be buying a bike soon.
Did you? Well, listen, I just missed my crisis of the 40s.
There's still time.
I need my Harley Davidson now. I'm too old for that.
No, never. I've seen people in their 80s. I've seen people in their 90s riding motorcycles, riding Harleys. So never too late.
Even my daughter, she's 13 years old. She was talking about motorcycles, and she mentioned that brand. How can it be? So
everybody knows it.
So you find the same young people together with the bold, a little bit overweight people wanting that brand.
Well, there's universal appeal to it, and I love that you mentioned that your 13-year-old daughter is aware, because I can remember, gosh, some point in the mid-90s doing research for children's toys that would conceivably wear the Harley Davidson name on them as a licensed product. And anything that had a sound chip in it that made that loud Harley rumble, kids identified with immediately. They like things that are loud and distinct, and that's Harleys are loud and distinct. Kids like it.
Now, so my initial question is, how can we get that inspiration for employees? And maybe to understand the size of the problem, I wanted to ask you, Ken,
Yeah.
what are some of the common mistakes that leaders make without even wanting about that erodes the employee loyalty? Why do we break employees and we and suddenly these employees are thinking about just getting a salary, getting the job done, and that's it?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking two big things in my mind when you ask that question is a very common mistake that leaders make is forgetting that all behavior is learned and
Mm,
that anyone that works for a living, without even thinking about it, models the behavior and the attitudes of their leaders. It's always been that way.
mm,
And that's what work culture is, right? Work culture is a direct reflection of the attitudes and the behaviors of leaders.
mm,
But because leaders are often hyper focused on numbers,
mm,
efficiency, growth, profit, data, doing whatever it is that we're doing faster, that makes it difficult for employees to personalize their role,
mm,
right? And they never feel like they know anything about their leaders, so they don't know why they're there, why the employee's there, and they get no sense that they're valued. So a lot of times they leave, and we see it all the time. And what I also see a lot is leaders who, and I'll never understand this, but I guess it makes sense. Leaders tend to, put on airs. If you get the language there, which means they tend to act aloof a lot and unapproachable and really serious because they think they're supposed to, and because all behaviors learned. That's what they saw when they were coming up in business, and that's where they're modeling.
mm.
Uh, second, and I know this is a long answer, all the rest will be shorter. Another common mistake is that people don't tend to really understand what loyalty even means or what loyalty is.
Mm.
And the definition that I use, because I think it carries the most weight, is that human beings, that's all of us, will automatically seek out and return to anything or anyone that delights us until they fail to delight us. So if we want people to be loyal, that means we need to be not just serving them, not just talking at them. That means we need to be making some kind of effort to
Mm.
delight people, to let them see the effort that we're making to delight them. And I don't mean delightful as in prizes and gifts. It's just being pleasant. It's being very interested in other people instead of talking about yourself, making people feel like they're part of something. Because when we do that, people come back, right? We seek out any source of delight until it fails to delight us. If we're not being delighted, if we don't feel like we're part of something, if leaders are ignoring us, not communicating to us, not allowing us to feel part of something, we're going to go try to find it somewhere else. And that's what's happening all over the place today.
You made me think about several things. One, you are totally right. This is a story about that an employee will make easily in an easier way. He will mind behaviors in order to survive in a
Mm-hmm.
corporation rather than the works. So it doesn't even matter what you say as a leader, but if your behaviors are doing something and they see that this leader is progressing, so I have to do that in order to survive in corporation. That's easier. It doesn't matter what you say. It is what you do that matters. And,
Yeah.
and I love this definition of loyalty. It's about delighting. And it is almost a pity because I remember back in my days in corporate that I had to change some old 20 years old training about leadership development. And there was nothing that was talking about the human psychology. So
No, no.
task oriented. Ken, this is horrible.
You're right. See, because a lot of times, when I talk about this changing our mindset, say, look, we're not here as leaders, as employees, as a business. We're not here to serve,
Mm,
right? Because that's a very narrow
mm,
focus. I mean, obviously we're here to serve. We have to, or we won't survive or won't be in business. But there's a bigger target out there. There's something that should cover like an umbrella, an entire business. And that's a mindset that says, hey, we're here to be a source of delight for people, to say and do things that people may not expect from a business, to not act and behave and perform and serve like our competitors do. We're going to intentionally make ourselves different and more likable. And we do that through delight. And delight is everything from the tone of voice when you call a business, the first person that you talk to, if you can hear passion and enthusiasm in their voice,
Mm.
well, we like that.
Yeah.
We're humans. We're drawn to any source of delight or anything that makes us feel a little bit better about ourselves. And we also notice immediately when someone's making an effort to be different. So, but a lot of times, and this when you talk about that with business leaders and say, you need to be more likable. Well, that sounds soft. There's not enough data there to measure my likability. But so you have to turn the conversation back to, behavior and psychology. If you want to be followed, if you want to be preferred, well, first thing is you have to be liked. And the
Yeah.
fastest route to likability is delighting people,
Mm.
listening to them, acting like you care about them when you're standing right in front of them.
Mm. So, but let's put the parenthesis here because maybe some people will misunderstand. Liking, it doesn't mean I will do whatever the hell you employee do. No, that's not
Correct.
liking. It is genuine care. Like even if you say no, you say it because it's going to benefit the other person, right?
What happens is, because I see this all the time in business. Anybody that's leading a business wants employees to be more loyal, to be faithful, loyal, parts of a team. But what leaders will do then is they will talk about that, and express that as a goal for the business or a personal goal for themselves. But when they are in a working environment, in the factory, in the headquarters building, they'll just walk down the hall and walk right past people who work for them without acknowledging their presence. And I'm not just talking about saying hi as you walk by. It's like stopping and say, "Hey, what are your plans for the weekend?" And when that person is telling you what their plans for the weekend is, the most magical thing that leaders can do is react to that. Oh, that's so great. Yeah, I wish I could do that. Tell me more. When we do that for people, and that takes 30 seconds, they will come back for more of that. They will say positive things about you, right? The fact that you showed an active interest in them says a lot about who they are as leaders. And that's behavior that employees want to model because they find that attractive. So the point being, it just doesn't take a lot of effort
Mm.
to act interested in and make these visible efforts to delight the people that are working with us and for us. And we'd be crazy not to do that.
Yep. And we tend to forget that when we think about any brand, I'm not talking specifically about Harley Davidson, we associate human traits to the brand. So we
Mm-hmm.
describe sometimes the brand with a personality. Like Coca-Cola is about generosity, it's about spending time together. And then we think about this kind of bad boy called Harley Davidson. And
Mm-hmm.
what I find interesting, because I didn't even Google that what the brand stands for, but because I have it clearly in my mind that it might be a bad boy, but it's somebody who is striving for freedom. It's somebody who is genuine, who will go and the driver of Harley Davidson will go and punch the face to somebody to if a lady is harassed in the middle of the street. He stands for something. He will go and defend. So it's almost like a movie that I have in my head when I think about Harley Davidson. Now, these characteristics of the brand, this personality of the brand, I guess that are truly important in a leader in order to drive this loyalty and advocacy from their employee, because we tend to underestimate the power of how the employees talk about their company outside. Oh my God, You cannot believe in my previous company. I would say a good 70% was bitching about the company outside. So
Oh
how
yeah.
can you trust the company if you hear from a friend who's telling you, yeah, that company is like that? Oh, so is there, what would you say are the key traits or qualities to make a leader truly effective on building this employee loyalty?
Well, okay. Well, first, a leader, any leader of any size business, Ivan, if it's a two-person business, if it's 100 or 1,000 or 100,000 person business, needs to understand that, because this is absolutely true, that the way people see and perceive your business is a direct reflection. It's a mirror reflection of the culture
Mm,
of the business. And the reason that's true is because we're all human beings. So we humanize everything. And the way that we humanize things is by attaching human qualities
yep.
to it. They're cool. I like them. They stink. They're okay. You know, uh, because that's what people do. We humanize things. But what business leaders tend to think and believe is that, look, if we do what we do well and keep getting better at that, the market will appreciate that and come back and buy more of our stuff. And that couldn't possibly be further from the truth unless you have absolutely no competitors.
Hmm.
None. I mean, the biggest mistake that we made at as a company at Harley Davidson, that which killed the business back in the 1980s, was believing that the company existed to do something.
Hmm.
And that was we competed with what we did, and what we did was make really great motorcycles. The problem with that is the math is really simple. Honda and BMW and Kawasaki and Suzuki and
Hmm.
Ducati, all these other companies, just happen to make really good motorcycles too. So if we learned the hard way that if all you're known for is what you do, you're putting yourself at a competitive disadvantage, because again, that lacks humanity. It lacks that human element that forces people to talk about you as a business that does something. They make motorcycles, versus talking about the humanity behind it. Well, I use the pronoun they, what they are good at, what makes them different. Because again, that's the human element. We humanize everything. So we learned as a business, if we were going to succeed, if we were going to become a preferred brand at a time when we were absolutely not preferred, is
Hmm.
we need to stop talking about and glorifying what we do, and instead put an emphasis on glorifying the people that we serve and promoting who we are as a business, what we believe in, what we like, what we do for fun. The more we did that, the more people felt comfortable coming to spend time with us, because now they felt like they knew us.
Hmm.
So when they thought about the business, they would attach those human qualities to it. They would use human, instead of talking about lifestyle, they would say, what you did is freedom. This is a lifestyle. Well, you won't hear people talk about, Honda or BMW or Moto Guzzi or Ducati using that language. They could, but that was language that we choose to own. Let's create this more human sounding vocabulary around what we do. And if we keep using this language over time, and everybody working at the business is using this language over time, people in the marketplace use it. You just said freedom a few minutes ago, and that just made my heart smile, because we did that intentionally. We
Hmm.
wanted to make sure that everybody saw us as a company that stands for freedom.
Hmm.
You saw it, you remembered it, and you just said it.
Hmm. Uh, I just cannot remember how many brands have this power, but I also think about, and sorry to talk about cigarettes here, because
Yeah.
Marlboro in the 50s succeeded to do that, to own kind of freedom once upon a time.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with the company behind Marlboro is that the values that the brand was conveying were not reflected on the people who were making it, and they were still manufacturing cigarettes a little bit.
A product.
You guys were manufacturing just bikes, better bikes than the others.
Mm. What's it? Funny little side note that most people don't know is that Marlboro was originally a women's cigarette.
Yeah.
That failed, and then they reinvented it using the rugged Western cowboy on a horse imagery, which resonated more, especially with men, obviously, than that. But what you see in certainly the cigarette industry and the bike industry, in every industry in the world now, is that the businesses have become really, really skilled at doing what they do. Right. So if you go online to buy something from Amazon or anybody, you can feel pretty comfortable knowing that whoever you buy from, the product or service is going to be good because it always is. Right. So if you're a business and people see you as the same as competitors or believe that you're the same and have no reason to like you and thus, prefer you, to seek you out, you're always going to have a difficult time competing, and you're also going to have a difficult time inspiring your people because they just see themselves as replaceable, just like the products are replaceable in the market.
Some of the discussions that I have, like with senior people or CEOs, regarding the importance of employee loyalty or advocacy, is that we have so much stuff that we have to do. Like, for instance, do better bikes, get the cash flow running, have a campaign of marketing that works, that really sticks in a market that we have never been. So there is many things. So how important it is, like all of this, when we talk about advocacy, is that really, really important? Let's forget about the good intentions that people like you and me have, but in terms of real tangible benefits for organization, is there money behind, or are we just dreaming?
Well, think about it this way, because these conversations are going to take place every day all over the world. Employees, go home at the end of the day, or they're home at the end of the day, or they're at their child's football game, or whatever that is. People are out and about in the towns where they live and work and socialize. Someone is going to ask them about their job. You do it. We all do. So what do you do? And at that point, that employee, you who's answering that question, is going to do one of two things. You're going to uplift your employer. You're going to say wonderful things about your company that would make whoever you're talking to feel like, well, gee, maybe I should go work there too. Or you're going to do what most people do, and that's complain about the business that you work at, which is extremely common. It's why so many businesses can't keep their employees. The employees don't feel good about the company because they don't feel good about themselves there, so they say bad things. Makes it really hard to attract new people. So one of the things I always talk about with leaders is, like, look, if you've got 10 employees, you've got 100 employees, these are your ambassadors. These are the most trustworthy voices in the community that you serve about who you are, what you do as a business, and who you do it for. Therefore, it's incumbent. I mean, it should be part of our business process to ensure that our employees feel good about their jobs, feel good about the company, feel part of something bigger than themselves. It's incumbent on us to make sure that we're getting close to our employees. We talk to our employees. We're very, very transparent. We tell them what's going on with the business, but that we also remember to always give the people that we serve, boosts to their ego and to their self-esteem. Right? When we make people feel better about themselves in a working environment, we're going to say good things about our working environment. If I'm ignored as an employee, as most people are, I have a really hard time describing my company with any level of passion or enthusiasm.
And And one of the things that I also realized what you were talking is that
Yeah.
so for a Gen X like me, I mean, when I was looking for my first job, it was all about financial rewards and maybe
Mhm.
status. Uh, a Gen Z is highly different. So the Gen Z would go to different sites to look at reviews about what people says about the company because they want money. The financial rewards is number four or number three sometimes, depending on the country, in terms of importance. While in my generation, it was like the number one. So I
Right.
go, I pays me more. So the cost of acquisition of new talent is high. I still have clearly in my mind, probably 7 years ago, having this discussion with a human resources person telling me that if we lose that talent, it's not a problem because we offer the best packages in the region. So we can find somebody else easily for financial rewards. But if this person starts being unhappy because we haven't been able to integrate him, value the things that this person was doing for the company, is certainly going to talk, as you say, in a negative manner about the company, and it's going to be even harder to find somebody to replace him. So who do you have left? The people who are transactional, who don't give a shit about
Well,
anything, and who will be a major negative impact, will have a negative impact in the culture of the organization. That's what we get for transactional, for good perks without heart inside of the culture.
I think that years from now, when the historians look back at business and sociology and humanology and all these wonderful things, they're going to look at what's happening now with what you talk about, the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z folks, coming into the working environment, expecting more from a business than just a job and a paycheck. And if you look around, you see, well, it's not hard to see why, because they've seen how the uh, businesses have devalued employees. They've seen how a lot of businesses treat employees like replaceable machinery. They've heard all that and, attached dollar signs to that. So, well, those businesses are just, simply greedy and driven by profit. They make employees miserable. I don't want any part of that. So then you go to the other side of the spectrum and you have the businesses that uh, have deeply entrenched, very tangible, believable social values of what they stand for, who they are, right? What they represent, the human qualities that they have, what they do to benefit people outside the business. That naturally makes a business attractive because that's what young people, especially, want to be involved with because they've seen the generations above them become bitter from not being involved in things like that, not being involved in things that are positive and good for the betterment, of all mankind.
Hmm.
And it sounds soft sometimes, and it sounds kind of dream world sometimes, but it's absolutely true. I mean, I've got kids that are anywhere from their mid 30s down to their early 20s, and they will always talk about social issues as a determinant of where they want to work, who they want to work with, and you never once hear them say, I want to go work for whoever's willing to pay me the most money. I mean, I guarantee it was not that way, when I entered the workforce. Just like you, man. Who's going to give you the biggest paycheck? That's where I'm going.
I I I have a number in my head. This 30%. And this is 30% cut of salary that Gen Zs are capable of accepting for working in a company such Google. So you take the average just because it is Google and they have certain values, because they have some purpose or whatsoever, they will take 30% cut. In my generation, we weren't taking cuts.
Right, but think about this though: is if you ask the average person on the street, what Google does, right? How they do what they do. Tell me about the internal processes there, all the science and the data, and how they do it. I have no idea how they do
Yeah,
what they do. But when we think about a company like that, we again we use the human language. They're cool. They do really cutting edge stuff. They make things fun. Uh,
mm,
Whatever those qualities, that's what people want to be part of. Oh yeah, and at the same time, they're extraordinarily, generous and extraordinarily vocal about caring for the environment, uh, for the lower and middle classes, things like that that businesses typically don't talk about. Well, they do, which makes them more attractive.
indeed. Uh, there is many companies using as performance indicator of loyalty, employee loyalty, the net promoter score. I
Yeah.
mean, there is good and bad sides, but let's forget real numbers and metrics that have been given by Accenture or by McKinsey. Let's
Mm.
talk about how would you measure success for employee loyalty?
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you that I am not a fan of net promoter scores, both inside and outside of companies. And I'm glad that you said that there's good and bad with this, because the good is obvious. You get a very, very quick temperature read of where someone is, and would you recommend us? Would you come back? On a scale of 1 to 10. But too often, I have seen that the companies that do things like net promoter score don't do anything of value with the data. So I don't benefit by answering your question, right? How satisfied are you on a scale of 1 to 10, or how likely would you be to recommend this business, or how likely would you be to recommend this as a place, for others to come to work? And my answer to that is always, well, zero, because I would have to be asked, right? If somebody's going to ask me that, I'll have that conversation, but you're not getting a very accurate read of how I feel about some by just simply answering one question. What I say is, and I know the business world just loves to get its data. We need to track everything. I think the simplest test of employee loyalty is your uh, employee retention, employee turnover. If you got high turnover, guess what? You got loyalty problems. If you got loyalty problems, you got massive advocacy problems too. So I would say let's spend a little less time focusing on and worrying about the metrics in and of themselves, because a lot of times it's just data, and instead focus on, well, what can we do to get better outcomes here? What should we be doing to build employee loyalty? Because just doing the annual surveys and things simply don't do enough, and most businesses, frankly, don't do enough with whatever data they get in return from employees anyway.
And that's a little bit of a sad truth. And the question that I sometimes ask myself is it because it's too complex? Like there is whatever company is treating the data will give me a 45 pages report, and I don't have the time to read 45 stuff with correlations and R and the distribution. Tell me in simple words what is going wrong so that I can solve it.
Thank you, thank you. You think of what's happening with all the virtual meetings that are happening right now while we're having this conversation. How many business people are sitting on a Zoom or a Meets or whatever, having a virtual meeting with their coworkers or with their boss or their boss is? And how many times you can look at a screen full of faces and tell immediately if and when the people that you're talking to are engaged. When the people are saying nothing, staring down, or put their avatar up, so you have no idea if they're listening or not. That's, as a leader, that's telling you something. That's saying whatever I'm saying and doing right now is not engaging people. So what would it take to spend a few minutes in those virtual meetings actually calling some people out and asking them questions about themselves? Hey, Charlie, what'd you do this weekend? Hey, Sue, how'd things go with that trade show? Whatever, and give people an audience and a chance to talk. And then as they're talking, your reaction, great. Oh, you always do such a great job. for us. We're so proud to have you here. Bang! Pretty simple stuff that make employees feel like they're visible, that somebody cares about them, and they see leader, and the other employees are witnessing that. They're seeing that. They're seeing those questions being asked and people being reacted to in a positive way. So they see an effort is being made. But man, when you don't see that effort being made, let's have our meeting, have the meeting at the end of the meeting. Okay, see everybody next time. Boom. Those are not engaged, happy employees. They don't want to come back for the next meeting, which is why they look so bored in every meeting that they're sitting through. Again, the lack of effort from leaders to engage people is the reward that they get when those employees leave and go somewhere else. There's a piece of data. If I'm bored and disinterested, my employees leave. There's the data. I'm boring.
It is so sad because, as you said, it's sometimes easy to just to observe the interactions in a room in order to realize how bad is the atmosphere at work. But we don't do it. We either don't want to see it. We have a bias that our job is to produce higher benefits for shareholders, for the company, and we don't realize that there is an interaction that between people that are engaged are going to accelerate this growth higher than just people who are just bored, hiding themselves, and with fear of speaking up, of saying, Ken, you are wrong. What the hell?
Well, in a business that's just on fire, that's rocking, that's selling everything as fast as they're making it, have clients lined up out the door, and it's just raining money. And when that money's being shared with employees, well, that's kind of a golden thing. That's pretty cool. Oh, I like this. I'm being rewarded for my hard work. Unfortunately, there's very few businesses in the world where that's true. The average person doesn't work at a company where it's just raining money and they're spreading it all around to their employees. So employees pick up on that pretty quickly. If the only metric here that matters is the profit, right, and I'm not getting any real benefit from that other than a paycheck, well, I'm not going to be very happy. I'll look somewhere else. And you just see that all the time. And leaders go, we have such a hard time keeping people. And I say, don't look at the people, look at yourself. Like you're the cause of the problem, and you also stand to gain the most by being the solution to the problem instead of just watching it happen.
Ken, so I don't think I'm far from the truth, but because I have met people who really genuinely wanted to work for Harley Davidson because engineers, because I work with engineers. I studied engineering, and then there was a bunch of geeks who loved the brand, and they wanted to do it.
Heck yeah.
And people are passionate. They love the brand already, so they will go and they will give their heart. They will enter into this flow of being immersed in the joy of doing the job that they wanted. Now, it is difficult. Like if, for instance, I go to work for a company that is doing drilling, to associate with drilling. So is there a way that that any company can benefit on what they stand for, and still drive this, use that as a tool to ignite the loyalty in their people? Or is it just easier for Harley?
The wonderful thing is, I mean, obviously you do have, and I'd be crazy to deny that any company that has a beloved product is going to have a better time attracting employees because people are passionate. Your Coca-Colas, your Harleys, your Nikes, things like that. But, and this is a point that I always stress if I'm consulting clients, if I'm speaking, I say, look, it doesn't matter what you do, what you make and what you sell, because that's not what people remember. Any business, and from a buyer standpoint, I either like you or I don't like you. And if I like you, I'm inclined to buy from you. I'm inclined to come work for you. If I don't like you, you better be selling your stuff at the lowest possible price. So it does come back to this issue of any business. I mean, you could be selling, uh, back office software for the dental industry. Uh, you could be selling black tar, asphalt, white paper. The product doesn't matter. I mean, as long as there's a market and people want it, they're going to choose to buy from whoever they like. They'll pay more to do business with and buy from a business that they like. But if they don't like you, it's because they don't know anything about you, the people behind the business.
Hmm.
That's what makes the needle move. That's what makes us pay more. That's where reputation comes from. It's all those wonderful human qualities. So it doesn't matter what's being sold. I always give this as an example, and this is really rampant in certainly in the U.S. I'm not so sure there in Lausanne, Switzerland, where you are. But if you call a business, sometimes like a doctor's office, say, a lot of times the first thing you'll hear the person say that answers the phone is, "Please hold." Boom. You immediately dislike that business.
Hmm.
They're making me wait. The voice wasn't pleasant. It sounded like somebody who's being overworked and doesn't like his or her job that day. And that immediately paint that picture in my mind of the people who work there. If I don't like that, I'm not coming back. So again, it doesn't matter what's attitude and behavior that's attractive attracts in any business, no matter what's being sold.
I like this example of please hold, but there is worse. I think your call is important. Please hold the line, and then they repeat it at least 20 times while you're waiting for half an hour.
Oh my gosh!
And then I want to kill myself.
How many times does this happen? If you're having a problem on your computer or with your internet service, and you call them, and they'll say, please stay on the line. Your call is important to us. For faster service, visit us online. And I say, I can't visit you online because it's not working. Why else would I be calling you? It just irritates you even more.
Ken, one of the things that I find quite fascinating is that regardless of that the brand Harley Davidson has been established for so many years, it is still treated as unconventional, something that they do things different. It's not the Kawasaki, is not anymore all of these brands of motorcycles. So it's unconventional. So, and extrapolating this different way of or non-traditional way to leadership, is there any practice that either you have observed that is quite unconventional but works in order to drive loyalty, or a practice that you have observed or done yourself that could be interesting to share with the leaders listening to this podcast?
Sure. The very first thing I thought of when you asked the question, because it's true in every language in the world, no matter where you go, that is, if you tell people what they expect to hear, if you're telling people stuff they've heard 100 other times in their life, they ignore it. We all do. There's nothing different there. When we behave as expected, people stop reacting because it's the same old thing. But being unconventional means having the courage to say and do things in ways that people don't expect and that aren't accustomed to, because that makes you more memorable. And I can give a million examples here, but if you look at all of the craziness around presidential elections now, certainly here in the U.S., but around the world as well, that if you have a candidate who gets up and says, what we need to do as a country is improve the environment, improve the economy, improve employment, get more people working. And that's all stuff that people have heard a million times. So they tend to ignore it. And then you get the candidate, and I won't name any names here, certainly in the US, but you get people that just stand up and say something crazy. Say something you absolutely do not expect to hear. everybody's talking about it the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, candidate number one says, geez, we need to get rid of landmines and torturing people in prisons. And then you get the other guy who goes, I think we need more landmines. I think we need to torture more people. Well, who's going to get the headline the next day? The one who said what wasn't expected. Completely unconventional. Any business can do that. And I'm not championing the idea of saying, mean, stupid things. I'm saying, look, there are things that we can say that people don't expect. That's what we did at Harley. It's what the Googles and the Cokes of the world do. Instead of talking about our business as a product, again, we stand for freedom. This is a lifestyle business where everyone is invited to participate. We're exclusive, but we're also inclusive. Things like people hear that they don't expect to hear because businesses typically don't talk that way, and it makes them curious. Well, I want to learn more. Versus, we stand for quality. We listen. Our people make the difference. We're a people business. We're a part of your community. All these things that you've heard a million times that stopped having any type of memorability or resonance 100 years ago.
But I would say that on top of what we say is the actions, is the behaviors that we conduct, is the way we go to work. If you want your people to be formal, then there needs to be some behaviors that are reflected, that are represented in the corporation, so that people breaks with the usual patterns. I would love to. I didn't see, for instance, in my previous job, so many people who had tattoos and at the same time were coming with suits. Maybe I saw one. That's it. But that impresses, and then you get to more interested about the person behind, and then you think, oh, maybe this person has some certain qualities that I haven't observed, because if everybody's dressed in the same way, how the hell am I going to expect different behaviors?
I use the tattoo example even all the time because people, for a couple of reasons. One, people always ask me about, the millions of people in the world that have Harley's corporate logo tattooed onto their bodies. And I said, that's crazy that people would be that loyal about a brand that they would, tattoo the corporate symbol onto their body. And I always ask these folks, what do you suppose when you see these people with the Harley tattoos that we're professing our loyalty to? I said, oh, they're professing their loyalty to their motorcycle. And I said, that's the kind of thinking that bankrupted our business. Right, that belief that we exist to do something, and that's make great motorcycles. No, when we're professing loyalty to a product or a service or a company, we're professing our loyalty to the people behind it, to the humanity, the folks that made this happen. Because again, we're human beings. That's all we're capable of. We humanize everything. So when we see a business, we see it as that collection of people that make this cool stuff happen. Or that make this really boring, dull, awful stuff that I'd never buy in a million years happen. So that's why it's so incumbent on leaders to exhibit all the time the kind of behavior that they want their employees to model. Because when employees are modeling that, we're capturing the essence of who this business is. People in the marketplace notice this is a consistent business. These people stand for something. They're cool. They're likable. They're approachable. All that reflects the attitude of the leader. In businesses that don't have a culture, businesses that we don't know anything about, that's not a marketing problem. It's not a selling problem. That's a leadership problem. We haven't created a culture here within the business that folks can understand us and prefer us doing business with us versus our competitors. It's hugely important, but almost always overlooked.
It is. I really enjoy this conversation because we have been moving through the parallels of an unconventional brand that has generated high loyalty, craziness, fans, devoted people, a religion. out of the
Yeah.
buyers. And we have been doing the parallel with this leadership job that it is to ignite loyalty from their people, their employees, to ignite this advocacy, which is something that is very often not perceived as a potential threat, but it is, because talent to be attracted, it is not anymore about the financial perks that they are going to, that is not that the expectation anymore. It is to work for someone that they like, no, they love, that they really love. It's like falling in love. And I think that our Gen Z generation has romanticized quite a lot these options that they have, and they are right. They are right to romanticize this. It's not anymore like me going for the financial perks. Ken, it was amazing to have this discussion with you. How can people reach you out to have a discussion, to discuss about either the Harley world, leadership development, and even marketing, I guess?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and I hope people will reach out. They can find me at my website, which is quite simple. It's kenspeaks.com. Or you could send me an email to ken@kenspeaks.com. You can find me quite easily on LinkedIn. Ask me any question anytime you want. You can listen to my podcast, which is called Tailgating with Geniuses. We talk to really, really smart people and very, very successful people about how they do what they do and why it works. Lots of fun. So I'm out there, and I say this to you, and I say it to everybody: is nobody can ask me a question that I won't answer. If you reach out with a question, I'm going to answer it for
you. Ken, I hope really I'm going to put all these links that you have mentioned below this episode. I hope that you are going to enjoy my country, and you are going to imagine in this place running around Lavaux with a good, beautiful Harley.
I've done the Alps. I've done Stelvio Pass several times from through Switzerland down into northern Italy. You live in heaven, my friend. So I'm envious.
Thank you very much, Ken. Have an excellent day.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. A lot of fun.